The finest safety instrument British coal ever owned weighed half an ounce, cost threepence, and it sang. Now here's the thing nobody believes. In 80-odd years of clever men and cleverer machines, nothing was ever built that could feel the killer in a pit's air faster than that little bird. More men walked out of poisoned roads behind a canary than behind any invention you could name. And the moment the song stopped, you were already stood inside the thing that kills you. You've heard the phrase all your life. The canary in the coal mine. Folks say it now for banks and weather, for oat that warns of trouble coming. They say it and they smile, like it's a bit of colour from a storybook. It was never colour. It was kit. It was written into the rescue rules of this country, and it stayed written there into my own working life. Tonight, you'll know what those 4 words actually meant, Doon in the dark, to the men who lived by them, and what they cost the bird. I know how backward it sounds, trusting your life to a songbird. So tonight, 2 debts, and I'll pay the both of them before we're done. First, I'll name you the man who put the bird down the pit. A scientist, a proper one, who breathed the killer gas himself, on purpose, in his own laboratory, taking the measure of his own poisoned blood to learn how it murders a man. And second, the title of this story says the bird had to die so the men could live. Well, I'll show you the little machine of brass and glass the Pitman built, because that bargain is one the men themselves refused to keep. Hold on for both. I went down the pit at 15, same colliery as me, father, same coal his father cut before him, 3 generations of us under the one hill. And me first lesson about the canary wasn't out of any rule book. It was just a morning, early in my time, when I came to the lamp cabin for me lamp and me token. And the birds were out. Little wooden cages, 3 of them, sat on the counter in the lamplight, covered against the draught. Nobody said oat about it. Nobody needed to. The birds only came out when summat was wrong. A heating in the waste, a bad reading in a return airway, a road the overman didn't trust. Any other morning that cabin was full of chelp and noise, men chaffing each other over the counter. That morning it was quiet as chapel. You could read the whole day's weather in whether the birds were on that counter. A cage Gannon Inby was the pit telling you, in its own quiet way, walk careful today, lads. And they weren't nameless, them birds. That's the bit the books leave out. The lamp cabin man kept them, and he fed them better than he fed himself, and everyone had a name. We'd a Joey, I mind, and a Peter, and one grand yellow fella called the Duke, because he sang like he owned the place and wouldn't work Mondays. Men who'd bite your head off for borrowing a shovel would stop at that counter and pass the Duke a crumb of bait through the wires. You'd think it's soft. You'd be wrong. Every man in that queue knew exactly what he was feeding, and it wasn't a pet. And the names weren't softness either, when you get doomed to it. A man who knows a bird knows it's ordinary. How it sings of a morning, how it takes its seed, what it does when the cage moves. And you cannot hear a wrong silence till you know the right song by heart. That was the lamp man's real work, all that feeding and fussing and listening, year on year. He was learning the instrument. You calibrate a gauge with a spanner. You calibrate a bird by knowing it. The fussing was the science, lad. We just never had the schooling to call it that. The first time I carried one myself, I was maybe 18, on a rescue drill, and the old brigade man handed us the cage the way you'd hand a man a bairn. Carry him level, he says. Keep him out the draught, talk soft, and watch him. Devent watch the dark. The dark'll tell you nout. Watch the bird. I thought he'd gone soft in the head, same as I'd once thought the deputy soft for tapping the roof with a bar. I was wrong both times, and it cost dead men to teach me the pattern. In a pit, the things that look daft are the things that keep you breathing. Now hold a question. 2 questions, and they're the same one, though you'll not see it yet. First, why does the bird go doon first? What is it about half an ounce of feathers that feels the killer coming long before a 14-stone hewer feels oat at all? And second, why did the hardest men I ever knew, men who'd carry a broken marrow out of a fall and never change their face, handle a threepenny songbird like it was made of church glass? Keep hold of the both of them. They've the one answer between them, and it's not the one you think. Them that were here last time will mind the air I told you of. The white damp, the carbon monoxide, the part of the afterdamp with no colour, no taste, and no smell at all. The killer that doesn't strangle a man but replaces him, quiet, while his legs keep walking and his own chest swears he's grand. I'll not tell that story twice. But here's the piece I never told you, how we beat it. Because you cannot fight a thing you cannot feel. Courage is knout against it. Strength is worse than knout. The strong ones carried it further before they dropped. Against a killer like that, there's the one move on the board. Get yourself someat that feels it first. So, why the bird? Sit by the fire and I'll give you the works of it, plain as the old brigade men gave it me. A bird is a little furnace. That heart goes like a sewing machine, hundreds of beats to your one, and a bird breathes like nought else alive, because flying is the hardest graft God ever set a living body. And a bird's chest isn't built like yours, lad. Yours is a bellows, in, out, half of it wasted. A bird's is a river. The air runs through it, the one way, round and round, wrung dry of every last breath of goodness before it leaves. Grand engineering, that. The finest breathing apparatus nature ever issued, right up until the day the air itself is the lie. Then every gift turns traitor. The same racing blood that lifts a bird off a perch drinks the poison many times faster than your slow furnace ever could. What made it a bird is what made it first to fall. And here's the mercy in it. The reason it worked as an instrument. A canary cannot hide how it feels. A man breathing lies will tell you he's grand, and believe it, right to the falling dune. I've told you that story. A bird tells the truth with the whole of its body, in order, regular as a clock face. First, the song stops, and a canary sings near all the day long, so the silence lands loud. Then it sways on the perch, gentle, like a drunk on a narrow bridge deciding. Then it staggers and grips. Then it drops. 4 warnings, in their order, every time, and every one of them given while the men stood round that cage still feel fit to dig coal till Saturday. That gap, lad, them few minutes between the bird's trouble and yours, that was the whole gift. That was time enough for a shift of men to turn round and walk out of their own grave. Walk a dead road with me a minute, so you feel the shape of it. After a blast, a rescue road, black as the inside of a sleeve. You gan in a line, slow, boots feeling for the rail, and the man in front carries the cage at his chest with his lamp held low. Nobody watches the dark. The dark tells you nought. Every eye in the line is on the bird. He's singing, so you breathe and you walk. He hops his perch, cocks his head, you walk, and then, between one step and the next, the singing stops. I've heard bangs that frightened me less than that silence. One word from the front, and the whole line stops like one animal, and the road you were about to walk stays unwalked. Nobody argues. Nobody ever argued with the bird. That's a kind of church too, if you think on it. Now the first debt. The year is 1896, me grandfather's time, before ever there was a bird in a British pit. A colliery fired at Tylerstown, Doon in the Welsh valleys, and when they brought the men up, the old cruel riddle was stood there waiting. The most of the dead hadn't a mark on them. Not burned. Not broken. Men the fire never touched, gone in air that looked like any other air. And the wisdom of the day reached for the old answers. The shock of the blast, the want of air, the will of God. And a young Scots doctor went Doon into that pit after the truth of it instead. His name was John Scott Haldane, and if you remember one name out of all these nights by the fire, let it be his. Haldane looked where nobody had thought to look, in the blood of the dead men. And there he found the killer sat in its seat, carbon monoxide, the white damp, filling the blood where the living air should have been. The blast hadn't killed the most of them. The air after it had. And to learn the ways of that air, he did a thing I've never sat quite easy with. 50 years on, he breathed the stuff himself. On purpose. In his own rooms, poisoning his own blood by measured degrees and writing Doon what it did to him while his head swam and his hands went strange. The record's plain on it. That was the manner of man he was. And when he'd learned what it was and how it moved, he gave the pits of this country a piece of advice that must have sounded like a music hall turn, and was the deadliest serious sentence of the age. Take a small, quick-blooded creature with you into the dark. A mouse will do. A bird is better. It will feel the killer long before you do. And unlike you, it cannot lie about it. By 1911, the bird was in the rules of British rescue work and in the lamp cabin of near every colliery in the land, and there it stayed the better part of 80 years. 20 times more sensitive to the poison than a man. That was Haldane's own reckoning. 20 times the warning, for threepence and a handful of seed. The cleverest safety instrument of its age ate millet and knew its keeper's step. Folk smile at the past and think it daft. The past knew exactly what it was doing. And the same strange doctor went on to teach divers how to rise from the deep without the bends taking them, and soldiers how to keep breathing through the gas of the Great War. All of it started doon a Welsh pit, in the blood of men without a mark on them. And here's a thing worth the knowing. It nearly wasn't the canary at all. Mice went doon first. Cheap, small, quick-blooded, everything the doctor ordered. But a poisoned mouse just sits, lad. It huddles in the corner of its box, looking much like a mouse that's only sulking, and in bad light, in a hurry, men read it wrong. A canary performs its dying. It sings near all day, so the silence shouts. It stands high on a perch, so the fall is a fall, plain as a dropped lamp. The pit didn't choose the prettier creature. It chose the clearer instrument, and it worked. I'll give you no grand numbers, because nobody honestly counted the roads that never got walked or the shifts that turned back. How do you count the funeral that didn't happen? But I'll tell you what the old brigade men told me, and they were not men for fancy. The bird was never once known to lie. Lamps got read wrong. Gauges stuck. Paperwork said a road was sweet when the road was foul. And men lied to themselves all shift long. It's the one thing a pit made more of than coal. The men who died in bad air, in my time of it, were men who got ahead of the bird. The eager ones, the first through the fall ones, the strong chests who reckoned their own body for an instrument. The men who lived were content to walk behind half an ounce of feathers at feather's pace and take its word for law. So there's your first answer, and you'll have seen it coming. The bird goes doon first because the very engine that makes it a bird, the racing heart, the burning blood, the breath built for flight, drinks the poison quickest. Its gift and its sentence were always the one same thing. It was never brave. It was never willing. It never knew the office it held, all them years, in all them cabins. It just felt the truth first and hadn't the wit to hide it. And that made it worth more, doon a bad road, than every strong man in the line put together. The pit's finest instrument had a heartbeat. Sit with that. I have, for 50 years. And now the second answer, the church glass, and the paying of the bigger debt. The title of this story says the bird had to die so the men could live. That was the bargain as the world understood it, a small life spent to warn the big ones. And I'm here to tell you the men would not keep it. Around that bird, colliery men built a little machine I want you to picture proper, because there's some of them sat polished in museums now and folk walk past smiling. A round cage of brass with a front of glass, like a wee diver's helmet. And bolted to the side of it, a small steel bottle of oxygen with a tap. The bird drops. The man shuts the glass door. The man opens the tap. Clean living air floods that little chamber. And the same racing heart that drank the poison fastest drinks the cure fastest and all. A minute happened too, and the bird's up shaking itself and giving out about the indignity, loud enough for the whole road to hear. Now think what you're looking at, lad. Oxygen was dear. A canary cost threepence, and the next one cost threepence. And hard-headed, penny-counting colliery men bolted a bottle of oxygen onto a bird cage anyway, so the thing that fell for them wouldn't have to die for them. That's the truest sentence I know about the men I worked among, and not a word of it is soft. I'll give you the picture I've carried 50 years, and then we're near home. A dead road after a fall. A line of men stood stock still in the dark, lamps low. And in the little pool of light, a grown brigade man doon on one knee, his ear against a glass door, waiting on a heartbeat the size of a shirt button. Nobody breathing over loud. Nobody saying oat. Men who dug their own marrows out of falls with their bare hands and never once wept where you could see them. Holding church quiet, the lot of them, for a bird. And when it come round, when it stood up on the perch and give out that first cross little chirp, you'd see the shoulders come doon all along that line, like the whole road had been let out of one held breath. We never called it soft, and it never was. The bird minded us. We minded the bird. Both sides kept the bargain, and that's more than most bargains I've seen made above ground. If you want the old knowledge, the real of it, before the last of us takes it under, stay close. There's more. It ended in my own working life. 1986. The electronic detectors had got good by then, and cheap. Little boxes that read the air to the decimal, never tired, never sickened, never needed seed nor water nor a kind word off anybody. Better instruments, and I'll say it plain and not pretend otherwise, a box doesn't suffer for its work, and there's a mercy in that too. So the word came doon that the birds were done, a couple of hundred of them across the coalfields as the papers had it, and here's the bit I'd have you keep. As I heard it, the most of them never saw a dealer's shop. They went home. In coat pockets and in cages on bus seats, to kitchen windows all over the pit villages, and lived out their days fat and idle, sung at by grand bands, pensioners of the deep with more honours than most of us ever got. But Sumat went out of the trade that year that no reading to a decimal ever gave back. Nobody ever named a box. No box ever knew bait time, nor its keeper's step on the cabin floor. And no box ever taught a young fool, the way one quiet cage taught me, what that silence means when it lands. You'll find them oxygen cages in the museums now, polished up bonny behind their own bit of glass. I've watched folk walk past, smile at the quaintness, and move on. Stand the extra minute, if you're ever there. You're not looking at a curiosity. You're looking at the shape of a bargain between working men and a small creature that kept the both of them alive, and at the exact spot where a hard trade kept its heart. So take the rules, lad. They're short, the way the old men liked them, and they were never really about birds. First, against a killer you cannot feel. Courage is worth naught and strength is worth less. Get yourself a sentinel and believe it the first time it speaks. Second, watch the tell, not the dark. The dark will hold your eye all shift and tell you nothing. The small true thing tells you everything, if you've the humility to keep looking at it. And third, the rule the whole trade stood on, the one that answers both questions I set you. Mind the thing that minds you. Feed it first. Carry it level. Build it a lifeboat out of brass and glass if that's what it takes. That's not softness. That's the coldest good sense there ever was, because the day you let your canary go hungry is the day you've quietly decided to die of the next bad air. And I've said it before and I'll say it the once more. That little box on your kitchen wall is a bird that never sings. Change its battery like you loved it. 50 years out of the pit, and I still can't hear a birdcage go quiet without me chest going tight. A canary in a neighbour's window, singing the whole morning through, that stops of a sudden. And I'm stood in a dead road again, boots on a rail, waiting on a chirp. The pit taught me that the truth comes in small packages that cannot lie. The flame, the trickle of dust, the bird, and that a man's own feelings are the last instrument he should ever trust in bad air. You feel grand right up to the falling dune, in a pit and out of one, that law holds. So find the small true things in your own life and keep them fed and heed them the first time. Every man needs a canary. The lucky ones find out what theirs is before it stops singing. And if you're wondering what yours might be, it's always the small, steady thing that was there and then wasn't. The engine note that's changed under you. The neighbour's curtains still shut at 10. The old friend who always rang of a Sunday, and it's 3 Sundays now. The world's full of canaries, lad. Hardly any of them have feathers, and every one of them goes quiet before the bad air gets loud. Now then, did your family keep birds? Canaries in the parlour, pigeons in a cree up the back lane? Every colliery row I ever knew was half full of birdmen, and I'd wager there's men watching this tonight that bred finer canaries than ever went doon a pit. Tell me in the comments, and tell me the colliery, for a pit deserves its name, said out loud now and again. Next time, I'll turn an old collier's pockets out for you. The 7 things every one of us carried doon, every shift of our lives, and what each was for. And one of them was nowt but a bit of brass with a number on it, and the story of that one is the hardest I know. Until next time, keep your lamp low and never trust a pit that's gone quiet.